Top stories this Thursday. Iran says Israeli attacks on Lebanon have violated the conditional ceasefire with the U.S. Tehran is also accusing the U.S. of violating multiple clauses of the deal's framework. Local media is reporting Iran is considering pulling out of the agreement. Peace talks are set to begin in Pakistan tomorrow. And last night, President Trump had a new warning for Iran. In a social media post, the president announced all U.S. military assets will remain in the Middle East. He went on to write, if the terms of the ceasefire were not met, then, quote, the shootin' starts. Vice President J.D. Vance told reporters the president has all the cards in this fight.
If Iran wants to let this negotiation fall apart in a conflict where they were getting hammered over Lebanon, which has nothing to do with them and which the United States never once said was part of the ceasefire, that's ultimately their choice. We think that would be dumb, but that's their choice.
And Iranian media outlets are reporting that Tehran is suspending tanker traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. The White House says President Trump is aware of those reports, but says they're false. Despite the ceasefire deal, very few vessels have actually passed through the waterway. The fighting in Iran is setting back the Federal Reserve's battle with inflation to 2024 levels. Tomorrow's Consumer Price Index is expected to show that March prices jumped at a 3.3% annual pace. That's almost 1% higher than in February. We have team coverage for you this morning. Elizabeth Palmer is in Tel Aviv with the latest on the fighting. But let's begin with CBS News Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes. Nancy, good morning.
Good morning, Michael. We are just a day and a half into what's supposed to be a 2-week ceasefire, and already some very serious cracks are emerging. President Trump declared complete and total victory, and yet his key requirement still has not been met. The Iranians say they will not allow traffic through the crucial Strait of Hormuz.
The firing hasn't ceased entirely. Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, the UAE, and Iran all reported new strikes yesterday.
No ceasefire ever goes without a little bit of choppiness.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth chalked it up to delayed communication among Iranian forces.
Iran would be wise to find a way to get the carrier pigeon to their troops out in remote locations to know not to shoot any longer.
An even bigger dispute erupted over this: more than 100 Israeli strikes on Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. Overnight, the Israeli military said it killed the nephew of Hezbollah's leader in Beirut. The strikes started without warning, hours after the ceasefire went into effect. Pakistani officials who brokered the ceasefire insisted it included Lebanon, but Israel and the White House disagreed.
I think the Iranians thought that the ceasefire included Lebanon, and it just didn't. We never made that promise.
Iran responded by restricting the one thing that mattered most to the president: passage of oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz.
I will reiterate the president's expectation and demand that the Strait of Hormuz is reopened immediately, quickly, and safely.
Vice President Vance is set to sit down with Iranian officials in Pakistan this weekend to try to hammer out a long-term peace deal. But already the battle lines are being drawn over Iran's nuclear program. Iran says it has the right to enrich uranium. Trump says there will be no enrichment.
Frankly, the president has all the cards here.
Democrats disagree.
The United States' diplomatic position and credibility in the world is dramatically worse because of this war.
So this ceasefire was already fragile, and now there is a new warning from federal officials. They say that Iran-linked cyber attacks are targeting U.S. energy and water systems with the goal of causing disruptive effects inside the United States. So here on the homeland, authorities are telling us that some hacks have already led to operational disruption and financial loss at specific facilities. Michael?
And Nancy, I also want to ask about President Trump's meeting with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte yesterday. What do we know about that meeting?
Well, we know that the president had a full head of steam going into that meeting. The White House press secretary said he was going to express his disappointment with NATO, the fact that NATO allies didn't back him in the way that he thought they should have in the Iran war. After the meeting, Rutte confirmed in an interview that Trump was, in his words, clearly disappointed and expressed that. And then Trump put an even finer point on it later in the day with a post where he said NATO wasn't there when we needed them, and they won't be there if we need them again. The Wall Street Journal is reporting this morning that he is even considering punishing some NATO countries that he views as particularly unsupportive by moving U.S. troops out of those countries and into other ones. Michael?
All right, Nancy Cordes, thank you. Well, for more on the situation in the Middle East, we turn now to CBS News senior foreign correspondent Elizabeth Palmer in Tel Aviv. Elizabeth, good morning. Give us a reality check here. Is this ceasefire holding?
Well, Michael, good morning. First, the good news. There were no Iranian missiles in the air over Tel Aviv last night, and my contacts in Iran also tell me they had the first peaceful sleep in weeks with no Israeli or U.S. attacks. Millions of people in this region are breathing a great sigh of relief, but not in Lebanon or the north of Israel. The Iranian-backed militia Hezbollah fired rockets into the north this morning in retaliation for Israel's ferocious attack on Hezbollah in Lebanon yesterday, both in the countryside and right in the capital city of Beirut. Those strikes killed 245 people and injured more than 1,000 more. And in fact, those attacks might yet kill the ceasefire. Iran's deputy foreign minister told British television just a few hours ago that Iran is only going to send its team to Pakistan for those talks that Nancy mentioned with the U.S. this weekend to end the war if Israel stops the attacks on Hezbollah. But Israel's prime minister has posted on social media this morning they are going to continue. So it's a standoff, and today is going to be critical. Meanwhile, a little more on the Straits of Hormuz. The very latest we're getting from Iran's deputy foreign minister is that the straits are technically open but mined. So Iran is saying any ships wanting to sail through have to arrange safe passage with the Iranians. We've had a look at the marine traffic maps, and they show that a few bulk cargo ships moved through this morning, but the only oil tankers moving were Iranian ones, and that oil, of course, is probably going to China.
All right, Elizabeth Palmer in Tel Aviv, thank you.